Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be looking at an early version of Timesplitters 2. This is actually quite a special episode to me because Timesplitters 2 is a very nostalgic game for me. Timesplitters 2 was one of those games that I first got for the PlayStation 2 back at Christmas when we first got a PlayStation with me and my brother. And it was absolutely amazing. Like, I played Timesplitters 2 non-stop, and oh my god, it was honestly the most amazing game I've ever played. Then I went on to Timesplitters 3, then I got Timesplitters 1. A bit weird, but honestly, all Timesplitters games are absolutely amazing. Now, there's one thing you're going to notice about this version of Timesplitters 2. This is I think it's a September 2001 build. So, this is quite close to Timesplitters 1 in terms of mechanics and whatnot. You're going to realise that there are going to be a lot more enemies, there's going to be a lot more props, there's going to be a lot more everything in comparison to the retail version, so that's going to be quite interesting. Things that are going to be different as well is weapon models, some sound differences, the HUD is going to be different, some of the buildings are going to be changed up a little bit, and so on. So yeah, let's get into it. But before we do though, let's have a look at a few of these images that are on GameSpot. Now on GameSpot there are quite a few images in terms of Timesplitters 2's development, and what you can see is that there are definitely different weapon models and so on, which we will be seeing in the actual version of the Timesplitters 2 that we have today. Not only that though, but after this video, at the end of this gameplay video, you know, of me going through this beta, I will be talking about more of these photos in depth, so stay tuned for that. There's quite a few differences, and it's quite interesting to say the least. But anyway, so let's get into Timesplitters 2, and I'll see you guys in a bit. Hey guys, so I'm back. So this is the cutscene. Now, there's one major difference that I've realised about this cutscene when we play it. And that is the torch that Nikolai is holding. Now, if you look at his torch, in this version, the torch has a little swinging hook kind of thing. Well, not hook, but kind of like, yeah, a little swinging like bracelet kind of thing. That's at the end of the torch. Now, in later versions, the torch doesn't have that, which is quite interesting actually, as to why they would remove that. It's very strange.
We shouldn't be in the research center without security clearance. I'm telling you.
But from what I can tell, there's not a lot of differences in terms of this cutscene besides that. And also, actually one thing I do need to mention is that the fact that you actually don't see Cortez jumping out of the wormhole, there you go, jumping out of the wormhole, and then this cutscene starting here of the level.
It's all down to me now.
Another thing, that the turret on the dam, there's only one, where in comparison in the retail version there was two, and in one version there was three. It's very strange. So here we go. As I said before, I will show you the differences in the buildings and whatnot and so on. Now this is something quite interesting as well. In this version of the oh god, give me a sec, guys. Well, let me talk about this first, though. Let me see if I can actually move around with these controls quickly. Alright, there we go. Okay, cool. But anyway, so in this version of the beta, or this build of Timesplitters 2, so to say, the terminal link wasn't actually developed at the time. Very strange. But no, it wasn't. As you saw in the at the cutscene, we only started with the pistol, and then we picked up the sniper. So there's no terminal link whatsoever, which is very, very interesting to say the least. So that was not implemented at this time. Another two things to point out is that these weapons are different compared to retail. Now, I've tried to compare the pistol from Timesplitters 1 to this one here, but from what I can tell, I think maybe this pistol that we have here is a somewhat modified version of the Timesplitters 1 pistol that you get, just with the silencer and whatnot. But comparing it to the retail version, heavily different. Not so different, to be fair, but it's still different to give a comparison that is quite big, so to say. Anyway, so this is the sniper. More metallic looking than in the retail version. In the retail version, it was more wooden compared to this one, which is heavily metallic. The only wooden part about it is the hang on a minute, yeah, as you can see, the only wooden part is the stock, the grip, and the handle, which is quite interesting. One thing I want to point out, guys, before we carry on, actually, is the fact that I'm using OpenGL mode, so you won't be able to see the menus properly. I'm hoping what I can do. There we go. That might work. Haha, I did it. I've done it so much now, I actually know how to do it without the menus popping up. So with the OpenGL mode, you won't be able to see text popping up, but it's not really that different, to be fair. Anyway, so yeah, so let's get into this. Okie dokie. So one of the things that is quite different to the AI that walks about who are doing patrols and whatnot is that they have a tendency to fire a lot more faster than they do in the retail version, and it also goes the same for you as well. You can also fire a hell of a lot more faster than you could in the retail version. So if you watch this, as you can tell, he fires a lot more quicker. It's the same with this guard here. These guards just fire a hell of a lot more faster. It's quite interesting, really. Another thing to point out is quite interesting is that in this part of the game you actually get the AK, which is very interesting. So let me just activate this alarm here, which is also different as well. I'll also compare that to the retail. So as you can see, this guy has a AK-47 or the S-47, I think something like that. Jesus, I'm just activating all the alarms, aren't I? But anyway. Give me a sec. Right, let's just get rid of these cameras, shall we? So it's quite interesting to see that the AK was introduced a lot more earlier than in the retail version, where you actually get in the tunnel room when you're inside the dam, which is quite interesting, and it's very, very cool as well. But the reason why they give the AK at the start is a very good reason, and I'll show you why in a bit. Anyway, so as you can see, the AK model completely different to the retail version. I don't know if this is the one they had in one of the trailers for Timesplitters 2. The one they had in Timesplitters 2, one of the trailers had a really, really blocky one. It might have been this one, not quite sure. But I'll point that out in a bit. Oh, I'll probably show it off later on, or probably now, to be fair. Okay, so buildings-wise, there's a few key differences about these buildings compared to retail. So this door here doesn't have a window, but there's a very good reason why it doesn't have a window, and I'll show you why in a bit. This building here is supposed to have cabinets in the retail version, but instead just has a bed, which is okay, I guess. Here we have a room here with a box, and as you can see here, there are ammo boxes here. Now these are sniper bullets, I believe. They're called high velocity bullets in this version for some reason, and not just sniper ammo. As you can see, the box is wooden compared to the normal retail metal looking, which is quite interesting. This room, we have the cabinet files and no table here. In later version, I think there's a table with armor there, I believe. Okay, so another big difference about this whole entire area is that this room here is quite interesting to say the least. Now, in the retail version, you have terminals here that are obviously just for props, but you do have one terminal here which you can control the cameras with. But obviously, I can't control the cameras because they're disabled, but you can't control them anyway because there is no terminal, which is quite interesting. So, even at this time, they haven't implemented the button or even the terminals to control the cameras, which is very interesting. Now, as we go up to the this room here, this room is another iconic room as well in the retail version, to me anyway, because there's a poster here and there's a bunch of tech here, but instead it's just a table. And one of the main things that you were supposed to do when you came up here in the retail version was you were supposed to press a button to unlock that door. But it's already open, and you can already open it anyway. It's already open as it is, but one trick is you can open it with activating the sirens, which is quite interesting. But yeah, there's no button there to activate it. Here we go. Let me just take this guy out. There we go. One thing I do want to mention, I believe the sniper fire is very, very slow, or a lot more slow, so to say, compared to the retail version. Now, one of the main reasons why they didn't add a window, or didn't have a window at the time in this building where that door is due to the fact that there's actually an enemy hiding behind the door when you jump down. So people will be like, oh, okay, get the mines, and then they'd get ambushed by that person. One thing about the female guards in this version is that they actually they use male voices when they spot you, which is very, very interesting. So I don't know if that's just an error or if it's because at the time they didn't have the right voice clip. Not quite sure, but it's very interesting. Anyway, so going into staircase 1 as I call it. So this one's quite interesting. Now, as you can see, there's already a guard there, which isn't normal for the retail version. But as you can see, there is a guard here. Now, you'll notice that in this version, there is a huge, huge lot of enemies. Like, there's so many more enemies compared to retail. And we'll show you that in a bit. And quite a few key differences as to why they seem very Timesplitters 1-like. So, the door closes. Which doesn't happen in the retail version, I don't think, anyway. Let's go here. So there's another enemy here, so that's 2 enemies. No enemies up here, which there's supposed to be like a, I think it's Captain Winters, I think, something like that, Captain Frost. Supposed to be standing there. Oh, but Captain Frost is there. Okay. Anyway, so, as you can see, this guard here is not firing its gun, but he's actually... Oh, now he is. But what you saw earlier was that he's actually throwing a grenade. Now, you don't see this in Timesplitters 2, I don't think, anymore. In the retail version, anyway. But in Timesplitters 1, there was loads of enemies with grenades that would just chuck them all the time in behind cover, like behind here in TS1 levels. But you don't see that a lot now in TS2. Nor do you really see the use of the cover system that the AI has. Now, yes, it is scripted, but to be fair, I kind of like it. So there we go again. We have the guards chucking no grenades. Let's just get rid of these guys. There we go. So as you saw there, plenty of enemies on the staircase, whereas only like, I believe, 2 or maybe 3 on the retail version. Okay, so as we head up to the tunnel room, or being inside the dam, you're going to notice that there's a lot more enemies in this room compared to the retail version. And not only that though, but the rooms where the gas valves are different as well. And not only that, but there's a whole abundance of crates and whatnot in this room as well. So I'm going to count how many enemies there are. I think there's about 10, maybe 11, I think. There's quite a lot of enemies. So there's 3. There's 4. There's 5. There's 6. 7, 8, 9. And 10. So there's 10 enemies in this, compared to there being 5, I believe, in the retail version, which is quite interesting. Anyway, so in this room, you're normally supposed to have a shelf here with some, I believe there is, I'm not quite sure. In one of these rooms, there's supposed to be a shelf with ammo, armor, and not health, I don't think. I think there's something else. I think there's ammo and yeah, an AK-47 and some body armor. Now, one thing you're going to realize about these gas valves is there isn't actually a marker or a gas thingy that tells how much pressure there is in the gas valves. Not only that though, but you also have it so when you do turn the gas valves in the retail version, voiced on the intercoms, has steam pressure at something percent, 44%, 33%, something like that.
Steam pressure at 66%.
With this version you don't. There is no intercom and there is no person on the intercoms. My apologies. Anyway, so yeah, so as you can see here, this is the body armor for this version of Timesplitters 2. Very different compared to the retail version, which is quite interesting. I'm just going to pick it up anyway. So let's turn this gas valve. Let's turn this gas valve. As you can see, there's no camera on the top right hand corner when you do the when you actually complete the objective of turning off the gas, which is quite interesting. And there is an enemy here as well. Isn't any enemies here in the retail version? This place is kind of clean in the retail version. The only thing that I would point out is that in the hard version of the retail version of this level, there is a turret here that shoots you as soon as you go through the door. Not only that though, but you will see a huge abundant enemies in the second staircase, which is here as well. So let's go through here. So that's 1 enemy, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are 6 enemies in this staircase, which is quite interesting. Now, in one of these floors on this staircase, there is actually a shelf with body armor and some more ammo on it, but in this version there actually isn't. And as you can see, there's a lot more crates and whatnot on this staircase than there is in the retail. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that this sniper that we have to our left, that's going to shoot us as soon as we get through the, as soon as we come through the door, doesn't actually fire at us properly. I've realised that the AI for this sniper isn't as good as it is in later versions or later builds of the game. So it takes them a while to actually spot us. There you go, so he's finally spotted us, and it took him quite a while to do that, so that's quite interesting. So they definitely fixed that in later versions. Yet again, I'm going to show off the reason. I'm going to show off the fact that the female bodyguards, when they have the alert voice file, there you go, see, she just used the male voice file, which is very interesting. There we go, he's dead. So one thing to point out, there is no camera here. There is still that camera here, but it's very weird actually, because in the later stage of that, in the later build which I have, which is the February 2002 build, there's actually a camera here. I don't think there is in the retail version. I'm not quite sure. I'll post an annotation if there is. Anyway, so carrying on. So in this building here, this is where you get down to the containment level, and this is where you kill zombies, and where you get the crystal and whatnot. But this version is heavily different. And not only that though, but this building here doesn't have vents. It instead has windows, which is very interesting. As you can see, they're breakable. These were replaced with vents later on in the later builds. Which is quite interesting. Why they would do that, I'm not quite sure. Maybe it was just due to the fact that it was easy enough to kill the enemies, like by firing grenades, maybe. Who knows? Didn't hear any death sounds, so definitely not. Anyway, so as you can see here, there is a turret here, which isn't there in the retail version. Nor that I don't think so anyway. And there might be in the hard mode, but in this demo, there is definitely a turret here, which is different compared to the normal modes you have in the retail, and also the 2002 build that I have, the beta. Alright, so something else to point out in this building, like I said, there's going to be a hell of a lot more enemies. There's going to be literally loads more props, so this place is going to be stacked full to the brim with enemies and props such as crates, watermelons, barrels, so on. Anyway, so there isn't actually an alarm button here, so really in the version, the retail version, if you were to activate a enemy, he'd be like, oh shit, and then he'll walk over to the button, press it, activating it, so 2 more enemies come out. There isn't in this version. The only way to activate the alarms is through the cameras at this point in time in this build. Another thing to point out is that there is an enemy up here, which you don't see in the retail version, and an enemy there in that hallway, which isn't there in the retail version either. And there isn't supposed to be boxes there either in the retail version. Now instead, with this area here, there are barrels with one of the hooded guards. Instead, you have one of these generic looking guards with the crates instead, which is very interesting. And not only that though, but a huge amount of enemies as well. Like, jeez. Like, so many. Anyway, so carrying on. Let's look into this room here, shall we? So in this room, there are file cabinets. One of the secondary objectives in this level of the retail version is to destroy the files that are contained in these file cabinets. But there isn't in this room. This is one of the most secret file cabinets. I always had trouble finding it when I was younger. But no, there isn't actually any file cabinets here. Instead, there's actually a flamethrower and a bodyproof vest, which is quite interesting because the flamethrower doesn't come until the very, very end of the game, where you activate the containment breach, or you deactivate the containment of the zombies. So yeah, there is no cabinets there, but there are cabinets in this version, though. But one thing to note, that they don't actually make a sound when you open and close the cabinet files. One thing I forgot to point out actually was the fact that the radar dish that you get in the that you have to destroy at the very beginning, which I forgot to do sadly, it doesn't actually have a sound where you destroy it. I'll show that off as well, so my apologies for that, for missing that out. Anyway, so the one thing I forgot to point out when I actually picked these up was the mines. Now, the mines are very different in all three of the versions I have, that being a retail, the 2002 build, and a 2001 build. In this version, we have these mines here. These mines are very different compared to the 2002 build, and then the actual retail version itself, which is very interesting to say the least. Let's just destroy that quickly. Also, another thing to point out is that this flamethrower here was used quite a lot throughout the builds until the very end of the development of Timesplitters 2, I think, until they changed it. One thing I do love about this flamethrower is the way that the front of the gun actually goes back when you fire it. Very fucking cool. So yeah, sadly I forgot about that radar dish, but shouldn't be a huge issue. As you can see here, if we get out our shotgun, it's very different compared to the retail version. Very, very different. It's very cool though. Very cool looking. Anyway, let's carry on with this building, shall we? So you've got another watermelon. Interesting. There are the windows, look, that we fired at earlier. There should be a mark for our... no, there isn't a mark of a grenade, okay. Another thing that I want to point out in this room, and also the room which is the command, or the central room where you open up the containment door, is that there's a hell of a lot more enemies here as well. Literally so many enemies in this version of the game. It's kind of cool, not gonna lie. Very interesting. Now, as you just heard there, if you caught it, there are actually enemies or zombies behind this door that are already awake. Now, in the retail version on easy mode, there is actually a bunch of zombies sitting down. And then in the normal and hard mode, you don't see the zombies until you actually activate or you actually go into that room where the foreign bodies are detected. Anyway, so let's look at these turrets here. One key thing to point out about these turrets is that these turrets move a lot more faster compared to the retail version. The retail version, they move a hell of a lot more slower, which is quite interesting. And here we go, we have our command room, which is looking very absent of props compared to the retail version or even the 2002 build that I have. Very interesting. So you're supposed to get the floppy disk, obviously, and you're supposed to go here and put it in. But sadly, when you open up that containment door, it's the end of the level. I really wish there was some kind of hack or some kind of way I could bypass the trigger after opening up the door. I might have to try and see how I can get into no clip, maybe, to see how I can maybe get a debug menu somehow, see if I can actually get into the other rooms. That would be quite interesting. But anyway, so if you were to destroy this, a message would pop up saying you've destroyed the terminal, you know, mission failed, whatever. But really, you don't really have to do anything, because after you open up this door, mission over, really. So let's open up this door and then complete the level, so to say. So there you go, look, we have our two zombies there, which is quite interesting. But anyway, guys, that will be it for this game mode of, or this beta version of Timesplitters 2, the 2001 February build. No, 2001 September build, sorry. I'm messing up with the 2002 build. Yeah, so, very interesting stuff. It's quite interesting to see that this is quite close to Timesplitters 1 in terms of gameplay and mechanics, as you can tell with the you know, enemies and how they react and whatnot. It's very, very similar to Timesplitters 1. Now, after this segment here, I will be going over some images of the beta version, so to say, like you actually can see on GameSpot for yourself. I will be posting the links for the versions of the betas in the description down below. I managed to get this one from a official PlayStation magazine, number 54, number 53, which is a demo disc for the PlayStation 2. The next one I will be doing is obviously a later version of the build, which is a 2002 February build. I will be showcasing that next time. That actually came in a PAL demo just solely for Timesplitters 2. So what I will do is I will see you guys there, and if not, I'll see you guys after this segment so we can look through some of the photos. So I'll see you guys in a bit.